Welcome to another episode of Healthy Thriving Family After Divorce Book Club. I'm your host, Stephanie Dobson. I'm the founder, CEO, and content creator for Up a Notch Learning, Inc. And I'm pleased to have you join our book club, which highlights our amazing finds of positive and constructive books relating to separation and divorce, which can help families to build skills and gain tools on your quest to becoming a healthy, thriving family after divorce. I'm pleased to have with me today Susie Rayner, who's the co-author with Bill Eddy of the book New Ways for Life, which has two components, a youth journal and an instructor's guide. Susie is a mediator, parenting coach, and founder of Mediate Negotiate, a family dispute resolution practice in Australia. She also works in other areas of dispute resolution and volunteers with organizations that support people in crisis. She is the New Ways for Life program manager and the New Ways coordinator globally for the High Conflict Institute with Bill Eddy. Welcome, Susie.
Thank you so much. It's lovely to be here. Thanks, Stephanie. Great introduction, by the way. Thank you.
Yes, thanks for coming. Thanks for joining us today. So today, Susie and I will be talking about these two books and about the New Ways concept generally. These books have been designed specially for young people, and I wanted to bring Susie onto our program to talk about the program and how it can help separating and divorcing families to support their children through the journey into a two-home family. Okay, so let's get going. I'd love for you to introduce our viewers to the New Ways concept that was developed by your co-author, Bill Eddy. I understand that at the root, the goal is to focus on helping people to build skills by focusing on teaching them what to do rather than what not to do. Can you describe more for our viewers about the New Ways and what it's all about?
Sure, no problem. So thank you for that. The New Ways, for your viewers, the New Ways programs, there's actually quite a few. There's about 4. So we have New Ways for families, New Ways for work, New Ways for mediation, and New Ways for life. So what we've done is we kind of encompass all walks of life. So depending on what you're going through. So if you are going through a separation, we have the support for you. If you're going through and you're in your work, there's New Ways for Life. So the New Ways for Life is for the 12 to 17-year-olds to help them to not only deal with the separation, but to help them deal with friendships in schools, getting out into the big wide world, getting jobs and dealing with the stressful situations that come with life. So we give them the skills before they get out into the big wide world, and hopefully then they can use those. So you've got New Ways for Life. Then we have New Ways for mediation, helping parents that are going through separations, if they're going to mediation or they've been ordered by the courts to go to mediation. And we also have, like I said, the New Ways for families. So we help everybody. Basically, at the basis of all of the New Ways programs is getting people to have like a paradigm shift and learning skills that will really help them in their day-to-day life, no matter what happens with their workplace, with their families, with their separation, with their friends. And building and giving these skills to people is really, really important. And especially for the teenagers. Getting out into the big wide world, there's going to be stresses for them. They're going to be dealing with lots of different issues. And that's one of the things that the New Ways for Life will really help them with, building these skills and taking with them. I always say to the kids, put it in your backpack, put your tools in your backpack, and off you go.
And, it's, children of all ages go through so much in life as they're growing up, and they're learning to manage their emotions and doing all of, the growing up stuff, developing their brains into independent young people. And so, this journal and this New Ways for Life program can help children. It sounds like, especially when they're going through separation and divorce. So it can be outside of the separation and divorce context, but kids who are going through separation and divorce, of course, have just these added stresses of their home life and what's going on with their parents. And so that's the interesting context that I was really looking forward to talking to you about today, in particular with respect to the applicability. When I was reading through this book, and I thought the applicability to help having parents help to give their children those skills. When we at Up a Notch Learning, we're always talking about building resilience, getting the tools, building those skills to help with that resilience, because resilience doesn't necessarily just happen by osmosis, just by going on day to day. We have to build that. And so the applicability was just huge for me as I was reading through.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing with parents, and being a family dispute resolution practitioner and mediator myself, I know that parents are going through an extremely challenging time with their separation and their divorce, and they don't often have the time, or they don't see how much their sadness or their anxiety or the conflict is actually affecting their child, because they're going through it at the same time. So with the New Ways for Life, kids can read through this book, answer the questions, and then they can sort of build their own little skill set by themselves if they want to, or with their parents. Ideally, it would be great if the parents, or one parent at least, who is open to doing something like this, to do one of the New Ways for Families online courses. And then that way the children do their New Ways for Life, or the teenagers or young people. We call them adolescents, teenagers, young people. We refer to all different terms for them, but they get to do that. The parents get to do it, and then everyone's on the same page with learning and building the skills, because we're not taught conflict resolution skills at school, or we're not taught how to do these things. And so if you are a parent who's going through a separation or a divorce, you're going through a lot of firsts and a lot of new things that are coming up that you've never had to experience before. And you are going to be dealing with a lot of emotions and dealing with a lot of, upsetness inside of you. And with the teenagers, if we can get them to learn about what's actually going on inside of their brain and why they're reacting the way that they're reacting, then I think it's super important, not only through the separation process of their parents, but for the big wide world when they get out there, because it's challenging out there.
Well, and you bring up a good point that youth or adolescents can do this book on their own. And I'll just show it here just for our viewers for a minute. So this one's New Ways for Life Youth Journal. And one of the things I really enjoyed about it, and we're going to get into what these skills are and all of that sort of stuff in just a moment here. But what I really liked is it's understandable for the youth, right? Because I mean, it's their journal. They can read through it from start to finish with or without a parent. It's also helpful. It's a really easy read for a parent. So if the parent picked up the book first and read through it and kind of understood, the exercises and what the questions were, they can also then, encourage, okay, go through the first part of it, or up to, this page, and then you go through it together if the youth is comfortable. So it is independent, but it can also be something that you can do with your child. Because as you said, there's so much going on for the parents. And so often they don't realize that that their children are going through things. Often when I talk to parents, I say, one of the first things I always ask is, how are your children doing? And, oh, they're doing fine. They're doing great. And so I really try to unpack that with them, not to challenge them and say, no, they're not doing great. They may appear to be doing great, but there's always things that we can do to help them to build those skills, so that if there are times when they're not doing great, then those skills will go with them as they go through this journey from one home into two.
Absolutely. And the main reason, and I didn't talk about this before, but the main reason that New Ways for Life came about was because of, just a really personal snippet of mine, was that I was going through with my family a really traumatic court battle. And I sat in the courtroom and I thought to myself, I was listening to the parents and I was listening to their conflict going backwards and forwards. And I just thought, if these people had skills, and they had the New Ways skills, which we'll talk about soon, they had these skills, then they potentially wouldn't be in this situation and spending thousands and thousands of dollars. And look, I know that not everybody can stay out of court. I totally understand that. However, I was sitting there thinking, I need to do something about this. So I contacted Bill Eddy at the High Conflict Institute and I said, this is my idea. I think we could really help teenagers, and hopefully the teenagers will then get to the age of perhaps finding themselves in a relationship and using the skills when conflict arises to then not end up in the court. And he said, I love it. We've been thinking about doing it for years, just never had the time. So let's do it. And so that's how it came about. And doing this, and I had teenagers at the time, or I do have teenagers. They were 14 at the time, so 14 and 15. So it was really good for me to look at them and really learn from them about what's going on. And my friends and colleagues with teenagers, that's sort of how it all came to be, this great big New Ways for Life for helping kids. And I'm a big advocate for teenagers because they get a little bit lost sometimes because they're learning about themselves, and
they've got things
really
out of control that's going on in their brains, and they can't understand why, they're reacting in certain ways, and we'll get into that in a moment, and they can't understand it, and they say things and do things without thinking, and learning these skills about how to manage that is, I mean, it's a youth skill, it's a life skill, and it's just wonderful if we can help young people to get these skills early, and then they can carry those on for the rest of their life.
Absolutely. Right? And what we find is that when the kids do this, they then hold their parents accountable, and then they say, like, hey, mom, you're blah, blah, blah. So it kind of works. And then the parents are challenged in a good way. They go, oh, what are you learning? And maybe I need to do this too.
Sounds like your teenagers maybe have said that to you a couple of times. Mom.
Yeah, and look in our household, and I love it because in our house, in fact, my entire family, obviously they know what I do. And so all I have to say is, are you doing this? And they're like, oh, I know. So everyone gets it. We're all on the same page. It's really, it's made a lot of calm. I can tell you that much.
Yeah. Well, without further ado, why don't we get into those skills? Telling our viewers all about what these skills are. So we've got managing your emotions, flexible thinking, moderate behavior, and checking yourself. And although each of these skills are universally taught in all of the New Ways programs, let's go through each of them and focus on why they're so important for young people who are going through their journey moving into two homes.
Yeah, of course. So the 4 skills, like you said, are the basis of all of the training and all of the courses that we do. They're not rocket science. And that's the thing that I want to tell everybody, is that people come to us and they say, oh, it's 4 skills. Yes, but when you put the 4 skills together, they are incredibly powerful. And it's really people, 20 years old, 40 years old, 60 years old, everyone sort of becomes this pattern of their own behavior. So what we do is we introduce these skills, which are managing your emotions. So the first one is about not blaming everybody else for what's going on in your life, because we need to sometimes stop and take a look and be accountable for what's actually going on. And when you get these upset emotions inside of you, not a lot of people know how to deal with these upset emotions. So, they can be good emotions as well. They can be happy emotions. And sometimes people that get the negative upset emotions coming up, they squash them down. They don't know what to do with them. So whether you're angry or frustrated, then what we do is we teach what's called an encouraging statement with the emotions when they come up. So talking to yourself, giving yourself, so for example, for parents that might be going to their first court hearing in a week's time, then we work with parents to give themselves an encouraging statement. So the same goes with the teenagers. If they're having an exam coming up, or they know that they're a little bit anxious about something, then we give them, or we work with them, or you as the parent can work with them to give themselves an encouraging statement. So it's kind of like an internal pep talk. So, I'm good at this. I know that I can do this, or it's going to be okay. I got through a really serious situation last time and I did okay with that as well. So it just gives them something that they can write on a sticky note, put it on their laptop, put it on their school book, put it on their mirror in their bathroom or their little side table in their bedroom. Just every time they get that anxious feeling or a stressed feeling coming up inside of them, like they might get goosebumps, or they might get a hot stomach, or they might get, they're not sure of what's going on, but they know that something's not right. Then they can go, okay, everything's going to be okay. I can do this. I can talk to a friend, or I can go for a walk, or I can listen to my favorite music, or I can, ring Uncle John, or just so that they've got something that they can do when they've got these upset feelings that come inside of them. If they're in a situation at school where they might be, someone might have said something nasty about them, then they can say, well, I don't know whether they said that. I might just have to go and, have a chat with them or something. So it just sort of gives them the first tool is the most important tool of emotions, because emotions take hold and then we do bad things that we regret. And the consequences sometimes you know, we could be talking about, you know, at the worst end of the scale, jail time, if you've got these unmanaged emotions and you do something that has really large consequences. So dealing with your emotions is a really good skill to have, just so that you've got the ability to take yourself away from the situation if you need to, take yourself off for a walk if you can, or, you know, if somebody's talking nasty to you, just say, I'm going to have to walk away now because I'm not really going to accept the way that you're talking to me, instead of yelling or instead of, you know, being aggressive.
And in the context of families who are separating, and, you know, the children have so many emotions going on, and to be able to check themselves and or manage those emotions when their parents are getting emotional, or when there's a toxic household situation, or someone's you know, one of their parents is on their case about something, generally, but more so we're talking here about you know, in the context of separation and divorce.
Absolutely. And the parents are going through, as we said at the very start, their own personal issues and trials and tribulations. And then, of course, that sort of sometimes waterfalls over onto the kids. And then if the kids have got this tool of being able to manage that emotion, then they're not going to cause that massive eruption of an argument. They can just say, look, I know you're in a stress state, so am I. I'm going to take myself off to my bedroom. And look, these skills take time to learn. They're not going to happen overnight. So, you know, if you do fall off the bandwagon, that's okay. Pick yourself up, dust yourself off, try it again next time.
But part of it is at the very outset, when we're learning a new skill, it's becoming conscious of the fact that you should manage your emotions. So even when you're in the heat of the moment and your emotions aren't managed, even being conscious about the fact that my emotions currently aren't managed, wait a second, I should do something. Or after the fact, even being able to reflect back and say, okay, I didn't manage my emotions very well there. It's not, as you said, it's not about perfection. It's about repetition and practice and learning skills that eventually go from, you know, not having the skills period to being subconscious about having that skill, which is, of course, where the skill is mastered. And it takes time. It can take years, of course, but we got to start somewhere, as you say.
Yeah, we've got to start somewhere. And of course, when you have this skill set, then you can take it with you in all your walks of life. So if you see that, you know, as a teenager, if you see that we learn from our parents, we learn how to act, we learn how to behave. And if, you know, potentially if there's a teenager who's learning these set of skills, then they sort of think, well, hang on a sec, they kind of ask themselves questions. I'm like, well, that's not what mum and dad do. So who's right? Who's wrong? What have I learned so far? Oh, maybe I've learned the wrong way, or potentially I need to learn this way because this is going to help me in you know, deal with situations better. So yeah, so managing emotions, that's the first one. Then we have our flexible thinking, which is where I call it black and white as opposed to flexible. So we get this mindset of very rigid thinking, like I'm never going to be able to go out at night, or this is never going to end, or ever. Those really all or nothing words, like just this, they're no hope
always
words.
Or never.
They're just at the bottom of the barrel words, because they keep you stuck, because you can't see any kind of way out of your situation, because it's never going to end. Well, it is going to end. It's just going to take a little bit of time to get to the other side. And that's for everybody. You know, using those words never, they're really powerful in your brain. So if we can change those words to maybe, or perhaps, or sometimes, then that gives you a hope that there is a chance that things can change. And things do change. They will change. But you have the choice to think flexibly or think rigidly and really uncompromising. And being flexible in your thinking will open up a world of options for you. So there's problems in our life, and we always think that if it's not solved with that one way, then it can't be solved. Well, it can, because if you tell me that you've tried everything, well, everything would be infinity, and I can guarantee you haven't tried everything to solve that problem. So, you know, and kids are kids are very uncompromising when they say never, and, oh, you never let me do this. Well, sometimes I do. You know, as parents, we know that they do have a lot of all or nothing thinking. So
Mhm.
opening them up to have this flexible sort of thinking that, yep, okay, I failed this time, I'm not going to fail next time. Or, you know, in the context of separating parents, like, this is really terrible and this is never going to end for me. But, you know, you'll be okay going through and being in separate houses, or going to mum's house and then going to dad's house, and forgetting my soccer ball, or, you know, forgetting my uniform, or things like that. Just like, okay,
Mhm.
it's what's done is done. It's okay,
Mhm.
I won't forget it next time, or whatever the case is. Just being a little bit more flexible in the way that you think.
Well, and even when, so, I mean, we know all human beings, but especially kids, love routine and consistency. And so if
Yeah.
they've had a particular routine in one home, and now they're moving, they've got a second home that they're now going to have, and they'll
Exactly.
think it's never going to be the same, it's never going to be good, and just thinking that, in fact, okay, well, it's going to be different, but
Mm.
different can be good, and let's give it an opportunity, and let's think
Yeah.
about how it might be good, and let's figure out how we can make it good, because so often things are
Mm.
within our control, and the power of mindset. And so if kids can be
Absolutely.
flexible, and I always tell parents as well that it's really important to show your kids that it is going to be okay, and that they can learn to have a new routine, and that routine can also be equally as good.
Absolutely, and kids are very resilient, no matter what age they are. They get used to the
Mm-hmm.
two, backwards
Yeah.
and forwards. That's just part of that, becomes part of
Yeah.
their everyday going and toing and froing, and they get used to that. The part that they don't get used to is the parents and the conflict that continually happens between them. So
Mm-hmm.
there's, I always say to parents, just contain your conflict, not in front of the kids. And this is where the parents need to learn to manage their own emotions. So like I said, it all kind of fits together. And, if the parents are managing their emotions, the kids can do the same. Be flexible in their thinking, like, okay, well, maybe you need to change the parenting schedule for this week because it kind of doesn't work. Is that possible? Okay, no, it's not possible. What do you think? Could we do it this way? Could we do it that way? Let's really try and work this out, rather than just saying no,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because that no is a really all or nothing thinking. It doesn't give you any options to work with. So being flexible in your thinking is very critical.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. So number 3, moderate
Number 3,
behavior.
yes, moderate behavior, and moderate behavior as opposed to extreme behavior. So when we talk about moderate behavior, we want to act in an acceptable manner rather than an unacceptable manner, which is extreme. Because if you act in an extreme way, it does have negative consequences. So if we're yelling, that's considered an extreme behavior. So what we want to do is we want to use our flexible thinking, we want to manage our emotions, we want to calm our behavior, and we need to be able to realize that we are getting triggered, or we are getting upset, and that we, punching a wall or someone at worst is not good behavior or not moderate behavior. So being aware of that. And if you are in your situation of parents that are perhaps displaying extreme behavior, then this is something that we need to learn, that we don't take this into our adult life. Extreme behavior is negative, it's not good, and we don't need to use extreme behavior. We could use moderate behavior to settle any problems, to calm conflict, and to help the situation, not exacerbate the situation.
Mm-hmm. And
And
so not only children having that moderate behavior, but also encouraging parents to show that moderate behavior, so that you can show that example for your children.
role model, absolutely, role modeling. And I know that there'll be parents listening out there that they say, oh, my former partner does this, and they do extreme behavior. Well, if the children or the teens can have one parent role modeling in the good way, then we all know that the children will gravitate to that karma rather than the explosion. That's that's what I've seen in most of the children, and from my own personal experience. Kids work it out. They do. They're smart little cookies, and they so using that as being the parent with the good role modeling skills. So learning these skills, teaching your children, being that good role model of moderate behavior as opposed to extreme behavior, because extreme behavior will have dire consequences for the teenager and for the parent.
Exactly.
Yep.
And number 4, checking yourself.
Yeah, number 4 is probably the most, and I know I said managing emotions is the most important, but doubly important then is the checking yourselves, because this is where you literally stop, you take stock, you think to yourself, oh wow, I've got this really horrible feeling in my stomach, I'm about to punch a wall, I'm about to say something that I don't mean, and just literally stopping in your tracks, checking yourself, am I managing my emotions? Am I being flexible in my thinking? Am I being moderate in my behavior? And if you tick or cross any of them, you need to stop and you need to walk away, or you need to take some time out and come back to it later. Any conversation that escalates into a conflict, you can stop it. You can walk away and say, look, I'm not getting into this right at this moment. And if someone even follows you, you just say, look, can you just respect what I've said, please? And just, we'll talk about this later on when we're both calmer. Even if you're the parent and the teenager, it's best to talk about it another time, not in that moment, not in that heat of the moment, because what the teenagers learn in the actual youth journal is about what happens in their brain when they are stressed. And that's a really, really important factor. That, and obviously when we teach the teenagers about the brain, we're not talking about neuroscience here, we're talking in a very basic way. And that means that we talk about it, that you get triggered, or you get your brain goes into this shutdown mode where you can't think straight, and you say things that you don't mean. But once they realize that one part of their brain has actually shut down the other, like it's completely just gone, so their rational thinking, their logical thinking, has just gone out the window. So there is no point in trying to have a conversation with someone who doesn't have any logical thinking and doesn't have any rational thinking. It's just not going to end well.
Yeah, and my kids have learned that in school as well, even not through the New Ways program, but generally about the amygdala hijack. And kids know what the amygdala hijack is. And, you know, it's where, as you said, the rational brain shuts down and the amygdala takes over, and all goes out the window.
It does. And of course, when we were back in the ages where we were being chased by a saber-toothed tiger, that part in our brain was really good to have. But when we get stressed, that part of our brain just kicks into gear. And then we're on our, like, oh my gosh, we're being chased, we've got to do everything that we can to get out of this situation, where it's an argument. It's not being chased by a tiger. So we need to deal with the argument with managing our emotions, flexible thinking, moderating our behavior, and then checking yourself. So the important one is checking yourself, just stopping basically.
Yeah.
Thinking, right, what's going on?
I love it. And, you know, as I was looking through, as I was reading myself through the youth journal, one of the things that struck me the most is, well, there was a lot of things, of course, but I loved all the writing prompts. And, you know, when kids are able to, without any other confines, just be able to write out their thoughts, it was just amazing. And I thought, what a gift for, you know, $12, $13, what a gift for, you know, kids to be able to have a guided way through that by the end of it can really help them with gaining those life skills. So I wanted to give our viewers a little bit of a sneak peek, just because we have the author here today, Susie, and I just thought I would get an idea of how did you come up with all of those prompts?
Well, I guess it came about from just watching my friends' teenagers, my own teenagers, and speaking to other colleagues about what their teenagers were doing. And I thought, we've got this way that we used to do, or that we do things, and then I thought, how can we give kids that transaction between what we used to do and what we can do, or what we are doing and what we can do to make a really big difference. So I thought that by having so in the journal, for everyone who hasn't had a look at it at this point, there are 2 sections. So the kids get to write what they did do, or what they are doing, and then how can they actually change this to use these skills. And it came about just from watching my own kids and having my own situations flare up in front of me. And I was like, okay, so what can we do? What could we do in this situation? And using these skills. And it just came about that way. It just sort of unfolded into this, right, so this is what you did, this is what you do, this is what you can do, this is your option. So you can either choose to, you know, have a thorn in your side for the rest of your life, or you can change, and because we've all got choices, everyone has a choice. So that's how it kind of came about. The prompts were to give the kids, and also too, another really important part about our brain is that when we literally pick up a pen, there's my pen, and you start to write, you come back to your logical part of your brain. So if you're in a heightened state of emotions, for anyone, pick up a pen and start writing. It will bring you back, eventually it will bring you back to that calm. So that was why the youth journal came about. We thought, well, we need them to write and get them into thinking mode so that they can literally learn as they're writing. So that was the...
And as you say, we can't, of course, turn back that clock. Wish we could sometimes. We can't turn back that clock. And so what we can do, though, is to take those experiences that we've already had and use them as examples so that we can learn, how could we do such and such better? Because that such and such is probably going to come up again, maybe multiple times. And so then there's a tool in their toolbox to be able to figure out, oh, okay, wait a second, that thing did come up again. Here, I'm in my conscious brain, I can actually change that. I can apply that to the same situation into the future.
Yes, absolutely. And the whole concept of any New Ways programs that anybody takes or anybody does, whether you're a teenager or an adult, there's no shame, no blame. And we don't dwell on the past, because the past is the past. We can't change it. But what we can do is we can focus on the future. We can focus on ourselves and being the best version of ourselves. And that's what I really wanted to get out of this for the teenagers, is to give them, I call it a gift, because I was never given this gift when I was their age. And I'm only learning these skills at 40 something. And, you know, I feel like it's a gift for them that they can take in every day. Like I said at the start, put these skills in their backpack off to school, or you know, going off to dad's house or going back to mum's house, or whatever they're doing. Use the skills. They will really help them. That's my goal, is to just have them use these skills, and it will make their life less stressful, less complicated. You know, they'll have better relationships with parents, with grandparents, with friends. Yeah, all of the above.
Yeah, there's just so many benefits to people of all ages having these skills and tools in their toolbox to be able to manage things as they go through their life, because things will come up again and again. And, you know, the problems are big for teenagers, but then the problems also get bigger when they're adults. And so these problems don't go away. And so the younger that you can learn these kind of skills, the better.
Yeah. And you're right. The problems don't go away, but how we deal with these problems will help us to deal with them in a calmer. And, you know, we see people losing it in the streets, and you're like, whoa, you know, and you think to yourself, oh, if they had these set of skills, they probably wouldn't be reacting this way. And so my hope is that all you know, globally, I would love for all children to learn these skills. I know that's a big ask, but it's something that, you know, I don't think it's unachievable. I think just one step at a time, giving these kids this gift of these skills and learning it, I think is most important. And, you know, to the major benefits for them is giving them these skills to use in all parts of their lives, not just with their parents separating. They can use that, especially with that, but that will pass. That sort of intense separation part of their life will pass. But then they're going to get the next chapter that comes along. They're going to find someone that, you know, they fall in love with, and they go, oh, well, hang on a second, you haven't learned what I've learned, so maybe I could teach you, or if you don't want to, then maybe our relationship isn't going to work. And they can choose and they can make wise choices with knowing these skills for work, for relationships, for parents, for all parts of their life. So I think it's vitally important.
Well, and I love the combination approach. So I'll just hold them both up. So there's the New Ways for Life Youth Journal, and then the New Ways for Life Instructors guide. And what I like about the combination of the two is that the Youth Journal, as I said, I mean, I read through both of them, of course, for today, but as I was reading through the Youth Journal, a parent can read this, they can do it with their children, the children can do it on their own. It is most definitely age appropriate as far as being able to absorb it as a teenager. Don't need their parents. It's always wonderful if you can do activities like this with your teenager, if they'll let you, but you can also turn them loose on this and say, here you go, I bought this for you, go off and do it on your own. But as far as the instructor's guide, one of the things I really liked about it is it certainly gives, I mean, the instructor could be the parent. And so it gives those tools, the extra information that's not in the Youth Journal for the parents, but it also helps to, there's additional materials that you can get on the website that are PowerPoints and various other teaching prompts to help people if they wanted to do a New Ways for Life program in their area. And so it really goes through slide by slide the kind of things. And so that's in the program. And so there's ways that we can make sure that not only kids get a youth journal and one-on-one get that help, but we can also do it in a group setting. And so really you're helping through these two books, you're really helping to bring that New Ways for Life to the world in multiple exponentially. So not just one-on-one. So it's wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. And the instructor guide, so initially we were really pushing this into schools for teachers. And then we kind of realized that this is really for any person who works or parent who works with a teen. So if you have your own teens, or you are a social worker working with teenagers, or you this is for correctional teens who are doing correctional services as well. These skills are for all teenagers, and depending on what your level of professionalism is, or a parent, it doesn't matter who you are. So we've got lots of, as you said, resources that we can give. There's PowerPoints that you can actually have visuals if you're in a classroom setting, or so there are options. But what we're talking about today is to give the parents the youth journal to their kids, if that's something that they would like to see a bit of a difference in their child's behavior, perhaps.
Absolutely. Well, I'd like to end today by asking you to give our viewers, one of my favorite things in every interview is your top 3 tips. So what would your top 3 tips be for families who have children, especially youth and adolescents, going through separation and divorce?
Well, my first tip, and we have heard it before, but I think it's really, really crucial, is pick your battles with them. And the other thing, if your teen wants to talk, you need to listen. So put down your phone. If you're in the middle of making dinner can wait, because these teenagers, when they want to talk to you, you need to be there for them, because they talk at the most bizarre time, but that's when they want to talk. And if you're at work, or, I know everyone's working from home and COVID's really playing a really huge part in everyone's life, but if you can give them at least a couple of minutes and just say, look, honey, I'd really love to talk to you, but could we talk, in about 20 minutes time, but just remember what you're going to say, but I really want to talk to you. So that would be my first, is pick your battles and listen when they want to talk, because it's, soon they'll be gone. And they, and
hopefully they'll be gone with these skills.
Yeah, absolutely. Number 2, if it's safe to do so, the teenagers any child needs to have a meaningful relationship with both parents, no matter what you think as a parent of your former partner. So only if it's safe to do so. So that's my second one, meaningful relationship with both parents, because the kids need, if they can, the influence of both and both families. So that's my number 2. And number 3 is don't hold grudges They're like, think of grudges as a splinter in your finger. You wouldn't walk around with a splinter in your finger for the rest of your life. You would take it out. So the splinters hurt. Grudges hurt. They keep you stuck. So don't hold on to grudges.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, I really appreciate you joining us today on another episode of Healthy Thriving Family After Divorce Book Club. Thanks, Susie, for joining us.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. Amazing.
And thanks to our viewers for tuning in. Please check out our other episodes of our book club, as well as our interview series and all of our other wonderful resources. We've got courses available for you to join, all with a view to being positive and constructive resources as you move in your journey from one home into two. Thanks again for joining us. And thanks, Susie, again.
Pleasure. Thanks, everybody.